First of all, a very warm welcome to all of you to our first roundtable regarding space. We have scheduled this meeting several times, and the key reason to switch to February was that we are all convinced that most of the COVID stuff is done by that date, which of course was a good bet, but we didn't make it. So I just mentioned earlier to parts of the audience, I was sent to quarantine that morning, this morning. So that's a key reason why I'm not in our office, sitting on my desk, and we'll give you some informations and start this roundtable. So all in all, the space sector has never gone through such a dynamic before. It's probably now one of the fastest growing markets, not only thanks to institutional missions, but also to the private capital investments, together with a boom of new companies, applications, and transition of non-space companies to space. This was one of the key reasons why we, HNZ, are reinforcing our space capabilities in our aerospace and defense portfolio, and are really happy to want Eduardo to start and act for this. We have now decided to initiate a first series of conferences with one of the most relevant space subjects, the future of telecom satellites. Yeah, like I mentioned, it's a hybrid event. Due to Corona, we only have limited space on site, but I want to ensure all of you, we are more than happy, and we hope with one of our next roundtables to welcome you in our wonderful building, to enjoy our bar, and at least have all together a good glass of wine at the end of a meeting like this. So give me for granted, and I'm really happy to see you there. For today, we have 4 really experts at this roundtable, but we want to open up the discussion to ensure a dynamic conference and invite everyone to provide opinions, questions to the speakers as well. We will start with an introduction of the topics, followed by questions to the speakers, and then we want to open up the discussion to the audience with questions and comments, and also online we can use the chat function as well. As long as you are not, let's say, on screen or whatever, I really would like to ask you to switch off the camera and micro. I think we are now all experienced in kind of meetings like this and know that's quite good behavior to do so. Eduardo, our senior advisor for space, is going to moderate this roundtable and will guide you through the session. Eduardo has really started his career, or at least his training in Germany, at the Technical University of Munich, where he studied physics, and he's really gathered more than 20 years of experience right now across sectors and in Europe. Before joining us, he was 6 years the CEO of Thales Alenia Space. Between 2000 and 2015, he worked with German companies like Kaiser and OHB, and before that with the European satellite operator Eutelsat in Paris. So really happy to have Eduardo with us, and I'm quite sure he's the expert who can really guide you through this roundtable. I'm really, really interested in learning and getting to know more about this, not just for us as a company, but also for everyone involved in that business. So Eduardo, now it's yours. Thank you very much, and already thank you to all participants, to all speakers and all experts helping us to make this event happen. Thank you.
So thank you, Michael. So welcome to the future of the telecommunications satellite market. It is one of the most dynamic areas, space areas today. Actually, it wasn't like that in the past. It used to be a very quiet and stable business with interesting revenues and good contracts with some incremental technical evolutions. And it was also a very conservative market with a careful adoption of new technologies. But since 2017, this market has been immersed in a completely new dynamic. And we would like to understand with our speakers and with all of you what the future holds for this market. And for this, we have chosen different topics. So first of all, I would like to introduce the speakers. So on my left, Antonio Abad. So Antonio Abad is a renowned speaker with many years of experience in the space industry. Since 2003, he is CTO of Hispasat, where he has developed the main part of his career since 1991. In addition, he has been professionally recognized, becoming an academician at the International Academy of Astronautics and the Académie de l'Air et l'Espace. He's also a senior member of the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics and the Institute of Electric and Electronic Engineers. He holds a Master of Science in Aeronautical Engineering from the Polytechnical University of Madrid. Am I right? Clemens Kaiser has over 20 years of experience in the space business, working in top-level management positions both at industry and intergovernmental organizations. He was COO at Kaiser Trade from the OHB Group and Director of Program Preparation and Development at EUMETSAT. Since January 2020, he is CTO and Managing Director of CleoConnect. And Clemens holds a Master of Aerospace Engineering and PhD in Mechanical Engineering at the Technical University of Munich. Then we have Ernst Pfeiffer. He has also a PhD from the Technical University of Munich in Aerospace Engineering. In 1996, he started his career at Kaiser Trade, where he worked for 6 years as assistant to the board. Since 2002, he's managing director of HPS, a very well-established German company in structural systems, where he founded several subsidiaries in Porto, Bucharest, and Müncheberg in Germany. Since 2015, he's also the spokesperson of the German Space SME Association. And then we have Stephan Veswal on the screen. His flight was cancelled this morning, so he had to join by video conf. He joined Airbus in 1998. He started his career in the UK and then in France on Telecom satellite projects. In 2005, he initiated a cooperation with the Indian Space Agency and moved to Bangalore to lead the first joint project, and that is where we met with this wonderful W2M project of Eutelsat. And from 2009 to 2018, he was based in various countries in Asia, heading sales for Telecom satellites and the overall ADS portfolio covering space systems, military, aircraft and services. And in November 2020, he was appointed Senior Vice President, Sales and Marketing Space Systems for Institutional, Defense, Governmental, Export and Commercial Business. Stéphane obtained an engineering degree from Super-Héros in 1996. And as Michael said in the beginning, besides the speakers, we would like to count on you, everybody on the public, to discuss the trends and future of this business. So just in order to participate, please just connect your microphone, your video, just introduce you shortly, and then just say what, give us your opinions or questions. So we have divided the conference in different blocks. The first block is devoted to geosatellite orders and constellations. In 2017, we saw an interesting cutback in geosatellite contracts from typically more than 20 yearly contracts worldwide. Actually, in 2014, we had 29 contracts, and that changed to 7 contracts in 2017, 8 contracts in 2018, 13 in 2019, 21 in 2020, but this was mainly due to CES and Intelsat C-band fleets renewal, and last year just 9. And I'm speaking here about contracts in the open market. So the question to all of you is, are we going to see again more than 20 yearly orders worldwide? Would you like to start?
Okay, so I think that the short answer for me, at least, is that if I knew the answer, I will not tell you. I will just sign a contract to a consultancy contract with Stéphane to tell him how much he needs to sell based on the expectations of the market. So don't expect anything very, very precise from me. This being said, I think that we have ideas of where are the trends going. And I believe that we have in front of us a very important opportunity for the satellite industry. I think that the last year and a half of the pandemic has done 2 things. First, it has accelerated the digital transformation of the society. I think that in the 3 months of the lockdown, we changed what we were expected to be changed in the 3 or 5 years, in the 3 or 5 following years, and I think we are quite closer today to a digital society than we used to be in the past. And same thing for the industry, the digital industry. But there is something that is very important, and is that this digital society, this industry 4.0, relies on the foundations of the communication. And that communication, and this is the value that we have learned in the pandemic, should be for all the people in all the places. And the only way to get the 100% of the people communicated in 100% of the territory is through the satellites. At the present time, I'm not discussing with GEO, LEO, MEO, but I think there is an immense opportunity for the satellite industry to give response to this digital transformation of the society, to this need to communicate everybody, everywhere, and to provide this capability to the people. Now, particularly in the case of the GEO, there is something that is pure physics, and it's not market analysis, and is that the GEO remains stable in the sky, quiet in the sky, while the LEOs or the NGSOs are moving around. And then if you need to build a terminal for a GEO satellite, you put a parabolic reflector, you put a feeder, and you have it. If you need to make it for a LEO satellite, you need to track the satellite. You need to have two receivers, one receiver to get the signal, another receiver to see and making the handover, etc., etc. So in terms of terminals, the terminal for non-GSO will always be more expensive than the terminals for GEO. So take any, if tomorrow the NGSO terminals can be made as cheap as $300, just give it to me. I will remove one receiver. I will remove the tracking system, and I will make a GEO terminal. So it's inherent that the GEO terminals will always be cheaper than the NGSOs. So in the applications where the terminal is a critical element, I think that the GEOs still have a good opportunity as long as, and this is the second part, as long as we build efficient and affordable capacity in GEO. And that relies on two main aspects. And Stéphane and the manufacturers know that very well. Either we go to the economies of scales with big VHTSs, and this is one of the trends, and it is limited in the market mostly to vertically integrated operators, but there is a trend in the market to go to the VHTSs. And there is another trend in the market that is, well, let's make, and I don't like the term, software-defined satellite or digital flexible satellites. These software-defined or digital flexible satellites allows us to industrialize, and I think this is the challenge for the industry, for the GEO industry in the future, is how to industrialize this software-defined satellite so that we can compete in terms of the price of the capacity with the remaining capacity of NGSO, because at the level of the terminal, in the GEO will always be more competitive. So in summary, I see a very brilliant future if we are able to manage and to resolve the challenges of the industry ahead.
So more than 20?
Yeah.
Okay. More opinions from you or from the audience? Would you like to bet about the number of satellites that we are going to see this year? Happy to send you an email at the end of the year with the number of satellites that were contracted.
Eduardo, if I may, on the topic, I think that the normal corridor that we see at the moment is in the 15, 20. I would say I don't see it at the moment exceeding it in the very, very short term. But I think the challenge is exactly the one that Antonio described. I mean, in terms of need, the need is big.
Oh, I think we have a problem in the video. With Stéphane.
Can you still hear us?
Oh. So can you still hear us? Could somebody just... Oh yeah, it's back. It's back.
There was a small glitch.
Yeah.
What I was just saying is that there is very limited one-for-one replacement. We are rethinking the business model, transforming a bit the business cases. And the question is, how do we bring the right solution at the right CapEx point and incremental steps also for CapEx augmentation so that we trigger these business cases. And then we have the opportunity to go much beyond where we are today. I think that's really where the challenges, and that's exactly why we go into all the topic of industrialization, where there is a link with Constellation, because Constellation has learned us a big deal on how do you deliver 2 satellites per day. That's what we are doing for OneWeb, and how do you bring that also in the geo business, because the 2 businesses are complementing to each other. As Antonio said, physics is playing its role. Each of them has got its own contribution, advantage, disadvantage. Geo certainly has a future.
Good, thanks. So let's move on to the next topic. Still in now that you mentioned mega constellations. So while the geo satellite orders dropped, mega constellations started to expand. The best known is Starlink, with more than 2,000 satellites already launched and in orbit, and counting towards further 30,000 satellites of its second generation. OneWeb has already 394 satellites in orbit of its 648 fleet. Telesat and LeoConnect almost 300 satellites. Inmarsat, Orchestra, and Boeing with 150 satellites in V-band. Astra Space intends to put 13,620 V-band satellites in orbit, and Amazon Kuiper 3,236. And on top of that, 3 months ago, several companies filed to the Federal Communications Commission in USA requests for further 38,000 satellites and an extensive use of V-band. So looking at these numbers, Clemens, would you like to start? Do you think that there is still business for so many constellations and for your constellation?
I must be afraid of having only 300. How can I make a business?
Let's call it a mini mega constellation.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really a small person here. So indeed, the numbers, and you can read it in the press regularly. Meanwhile, on a weekly basis, new constellations are announced, and everywhere in the world, filings are still on its way through regulators to the ITU. In some ways, a little bit threatening in the sense of, okay, do we all want, obviously, make business out of that? How does it work? And it is maybe difficult really to understand what kind of market is in front of us. I compare it sometimes with everything which has 4 wheels is not necessarily doing the same service. So I have, of course, my Volkswagen Golf, for example, which is maybe the 10,000 of Golfs for them. But I have also a Maserati, and I have maybe also a Tesla. But there are also other things on 4 wheels, lorries, buses. So I think that the market is huge because it's quite segregated, and we have really to see who is delivering or who's serving which market niche. And I think especially the smaller one, if I say I'm a small constellation, although I have the same, serve the same geography as the others, I think there are sufficient niches, without saying that a niche is not a good business, but which have some exclusivity and serve specific solutions to customers which are willing to pay also high prices compared to maybe the mass and consumer market. And here maybe the curtains opens more and more, and we see it when discussing with customers that, and I'm happy also to see your view here, that even solutions are not even on the table and will come as soon as the infrastructure is in space. And then we see even further, I would say, market opportunities. It's a kind of investment, and maybe we look back what happened in the geo world. People put geostationary satellites and invested a hell amount of money to put it there. I think it was not at all clear at that time when the decision was made what kind of market is behind. The market has developed with the availability of this kind of infrastructure, and I'm sure that there is enough room. There is limited resources in terms of frequencies. Yes, this is clear. So my bet on Ka band is there's only a handful of constellations which will share the Ka band, at least on dedicated geographies. We come also to that point maybe later. That's the reason why we will also discuss this about the other bands, because people are chasing already the higher bands, because physics are physics. So this is clear. There's a throughput, there's a bottleneck in the atmosphere, so to say, in the RF, which we all have to tackle.
Okay. Any more opinions about this question, also from the public? If not, then we move on. Still in constellations, they are not new. If we look back, everybody heard about Globalstar, Iridium Next, or 3B, with dozens of satellites each. And the geostationary satellite operators have also been involved in constellations. SES has the O3B constellation, which is the only one that is operating in MEO, to which they will add now the mPower MEO constellation. And recently, Steve Kohler also mentioned that they have a new LEO project. Eutelsat invested recently around 630 million euros in OneWeb. And also Hispasat has been involved in mega constellations in the past, like LeoSat, which was also a constellation of dozens of satellites. And in addition to all this, interoperability is starting to be a trending topic today. We hear interoperability in every single constellation in the news almost every day. So are the legacy geo operators going towards a mix of geo, MEO, LEO satellites to provide a wider range of services?
Well, I guess you are addressing more or less to me, aren't you?
I wasn't looking at you.
Yeah, no, this time you were looking at me. Yeah, that's correct. I think that as part of the transformation of the business that we are suffering, and we all recognize that there is a transformation from the days that we were broadcast satellite operators. And when we started providing connectivity to people, we realized that the people in reality, they don't care what is the technology, what is the mean that they're using. They only care about being connected. Do you really know when you're connected to internet? I mean, normally you know if it's fiber or not, but because it's faster. But do you know if you're using a submarine cable, you're using an RF link, if you're using a fiber? You don't know. And what is more, you don't care. And I think the current satellite operators, we have understood that we need to be more customer-centric and not that much technology associated. So in that sense, in the particular question you're asking me, the response is absolutely. We will look for any kind of infrastructure that helps us providing additional value to our customers, whatever it is, LEO, GEO, MEO, or whatever. And about interoperability, and I don't want to monopolize, I think that we will have time to discuss, but I think on interoperability, you're right, it's a kind of a fashion word, but it's interoperability between orbits, interoperability with terrestrial infrastructure, and what it is more, interoperability between operators. So I think we'll have time to discuss.
Interesting point, yeah. So more opinions about this from the public? If not, let's move on to institutional constellations. So we keep on talking about constellations. The European Union intends to create a multi-orbit network. Commissaire Breton says that this infrastructure will reduce European dependencies of non-European commercial initiatives such as Starlink and OneWeb. This constellation should integrate defense needs, quantum encryption, and should start providing first services in 2 years. And there are companies, large and small companies, that have been involved in the consortia that have been defining this infrastructure. This is an interesting European Union initiative, and the questions are, what is the view of the industry and operators about this initiative, and what is going to bring this to the European ecosystem? And do you think that this is the right answer to private mega constellations?
Should I start?
Yeah.
When I go somewhere to discussions, this is the topic.
Okay.
The European constellation. You go somewhere at the table at lunch, somewhere everybody talks about it. And I personally think it is a new approach. Europe is building a public governmental constellation, which could be in competition to commercial ones. Europe, you could expect this from other countries, but not from Europe. On the other hand, I see if we don't do this, we might come into a dependency to other countries, not to other countries, but more to other operators of other countries. And we see it in several sections of industry, terrestrial, transport, or whatever, that Europe gets more and more into dependencies. That's why I personally fully support this initiative. If you compare the cost of such a constellation to other costs which public is spending, it's not too much. And what I understood is that for pure commercial business case in Europe, it might be not too much business coming back. So the initial point to do it with the governmental one is good. But when I see also my members of the SME, some are saying maybe we should think more on anchor customership, such a business model. They say that it might be difficult to tune the Constellation to a Volkswagen and a Maserati, like Clemens has said. So all in one constellation. So my personal dream is, as European, there might be one constellation, but with different players, different components. We all know there is one very big consortium of very large companies. Mm-hmm. There are two ones competing, new space ones, very good. At least I encourage and would like to see that all sit together on a table, drinking a beer and just brainstorming. Just brainstorming, can't we combine it? Huh? I think it's a sake, it's good for everyone. What I think what must be done is that this European constellation is a green one. Mm-hmm. Is not making the same error than the other ones, just sending the satellites up there. There must be an automatic deorbit system on it, for example. This we can do better. And to share the budget on this governmental constellation, I see also there must be a need of a regulation to share it. So like in Copernicus, there was a clear share for SME. Mm-hmm. If you let governmental projects run alone, so maybe you, Stéphane, might be out of other opinion. If you run this alone, there is not the real need for the big primes to subcontract. I see it different from the small medium enterprise constellations. They cannot do it all by themselves. They need others. And this is the big difference. So I hope also that the big constellation finally target something like minimum 20% to SME. I hope speed is done on European Commission and the national authorities to speed up.
Okay.
Sorry, maybe I have been too long, but
no, it's okay. No, also Hispasat and Airbus have been involved in the definition of these constellations. Is there anything that you can add?
Stéphane, you want to?
Antonio, if you want to make a start or the one.
Yes, please, Stéphane.
Yeah, no, but just building on what you just mentioned. I think what is really in any case at the back of this project, it's sovereignty and security. And after that, let's be as clever as we can. Let's make the best use of taxpayers' money to make sure that we deliver value and create business and opportunities. But what is really at the heart and what is the core, it's sovereignty and security. Where I think that in any case, I think that sometimes too many people are trying to oppose the kind of the big players versus the SMEs or the new guys. I think that in any case on this program, everybody will have to be at some point around the table, because what we are also going to try to manage through that project, or what EU should manage through that project, it's a mix of real need for operational service, and operational service needs some level of strength and so on perhaps established players have more background with. But it's also at the same time, because we are going to fly so many missions, so many satellites and so on, and we always need to prepare for the future. We also need to be at the same time innovative, preparing for the next step, because the constellation is in permanent, I would say, replenishment and so on. And it's really where, in any case, the full chain between perhaps the big players, between the SMEs and between the new startups, we have an interest to work together. I mean, in Airbus, that's what we call the next space. We don't like old or new space. It's just people trying to oppose two worlds which will be working together anyway. That's what we are doing every day, to work with some startups and so on. And for us, it's just making sure that the space is relevant and that we prepare for what is next. So I'm definitely convinced that in any case on that project, and in any case, that's also the way that the EU works, we will be all around the table. Whether it's going to be beer or wine, I mean, we'll choose. Or both. Antonio.
So on our side, first thing I would like to state clearly is that we certainly welcome the initiative from the European Commission. As it has been said, we have been participating in the studies, and we will be very much interested in participating in the deployment of this constellation. What I can say on our side is that if we are talking about mega constellations of $5 to $10 billion of capex, in our humble opinion, there is not a commercial business model that supports this thing. And then you say, well, but how the hell are they making this the existing the constellation? And the only explanation I can give, and it's my poor explanation, is, well, I think Starlink is not expected to recover the investment with the monthly fees that they are going to charge to the users. I think that this is more what we call an internet business model, where you are creating a user community, and once you have created a large user community, you use the value of the community to monetize in a certain way this community that you have created. And I guess this is the way that they are expecting to do it, and we still don't understand what is the way they are going to monetize this community that they are creating of users. But and I can say something very clearly. My shareholders would never go into that model. I mean, if I go to my shareholders, I need to come with a commercial business plan like you all have. I mean, I cannot tell them a story about community and internet for spending $10 billion. Maybe somebody can afford it. And we need to recognize the value of some of these leaders in getting access to these funds. But I don't think we have access to this funding in Europe. The other alternative is the other system that is flying today one way, is that it is supported by the UK government is supporting one way. Okay, maybe. And I think this is exactly what the response that we are having with the European Commission. So in that sense, we think that we are taking the right response if we want to have an European constellation. This being said, we also believe that the best model is to have a PPP where commercial companies together with the public administration can invest together to make this happen and to make a viable commercial case where we can jointly invest and make the maximum of the public money that need to be injected in this program in order to have this possibility. This being said, and responding to Ernst also, on our side, more than happy, and I am convinced, Ernst, that the path of the large companies with the studies of the SMEs, it has a convergence, and at the end of the day, as Stéphane was saying, I'm not sure everybody is going to be there, but everybody is going to be sitting together, discussing, and having the opportunity to work together. I'm completely convinced. I don't think Europe can afford now say, no, I'm going to make it only with large companies, or I'm going to make it only with a small company. I don't think we can afford that. I think we need to sum all the efforts and all the interests of everybody to make this happen.
If you allow it out, indeed, I have several thoughts about this. First of all, coming from Humansat and from an intergovernmental organization, I'm aware that such programs are huge, and these are not commercially driven. But if it comes from member states or from organizations, from the politics, means the argument also, or the justification, Stéphane said, sovereignty and security. I mean, we remember why we have Galileo, yeah, And so this gives enough justification to invest, because one can think about maybe further business. This was, by the way, one of the justifications of Copernicus, to invest into Copernicus, to even, I would say, stimulate further markets down and downstream. I must say, I have to say, indeed, thank you to Mr. Breton, because I mean, our business model, or our venture, goes back really to the year of 2014, where these founders have done their filing, and even in 2017 it was extremely difficult, because even politicians were not even, sorry to say this, even to spell the word connectivity. A part of that they have not understood what it is. So why in the US, OneWeb and space, they were already on the track. So I think it was very positive that someone brought this up. And now if I speak with politicians also in Germany, they have now all understood what it means. And it changed dramatically, I must say, changed dramatically. We have all understood that we need such kind of infrastructure, and there is a role for institutional, I would say, institutions like the EU to simply put money on the table, even taxpayers' money on the table, and invest in it. The question now from a commercial perspective, or a commercial operator saying, but where is now room for the others? And since 3 years, I would say, in this new space domain, and it's wonderful to see what is growing here, in whatever kind of application areas. And I see here, and this is what we also discuss, of course, be careful and look what also other nations like the US is doing. Be careful and not destroy with such kind of initiative already commercial, I would say, initiatives. And the question is, a part of sovereignty and security, I've understood there are plenty of applications EU has in mind to deliver to the EU citizens, but maybe there is, as you said, a system of systems, I would call it, that maybe what they want to get at the end is a mixture of elements, of even an EU-owned infrastructure operated by, I would say, professional people, plus, I would say, I know that some maybe not like this comparison, but like in Copernicus saying, well, and for some applications, of course, then we can procure on the market the services and bring this, I would say, to the EU citizens as a kind of an add-on. So therefore, I see room for both worlds to jointly, I would say, create this infrastructure.
Okay. We have a question from the public that I think it's appropriate now. So from Alejandro Salado, he asks, the growth of Amazon and in general online shopping has led to significant evolutions in supporting business, such as transportation and delivery companies. As we get into massive telecommunication constellations, do you foresee any dramatic change or the emergence of new businesses to support them?
I would say, Alejandro, thanks for the question. I do not use the word telecommunication and communication. I always say connectivity, because it's much more than communication. I think we should leave a little bit, I would say this. What we intend to provide is simply capacity, a pipeline, a throughput, so to say. And what you will do with this throughput, it's up to you, I would say, or up to the customer, up to a reseller. And this is my view, that in providing this kind of infrastructure with this high throughput capacity in low latency and whatever you can dream of currently, you even get completely new business models arising if you discuss with customers saying, look, if you could connect point A with connect point B with a low latency connectivity, high throughput, this is not yet existent. What would you think you can benefit from? And then the customer starts, and we have wonderful discussions about new ideas, how to use such kind of infrastructure.
And I think that this revolves in the previous idea on what is the business model behind those constellations. In this case, Kuiper, I'm sure that there is some idea in Kuiper about mixing AWS with the Amazon application, with the connectivity. I mean, there is a bundling of the offer that makes sense in the whole system. And I think this is exactly what we are saying. I mean, it cannot be supported with a standard business, commercial business plan. But if you add on top of the connectivity, you add the Amazon capabilities plus the AWS capabilities, obviously there may be other cases that can support this deployment.
Mm-hmm. Great.
I would love to see the business plan of Apple from the very early days before they invested into the iPhone, and compare it now with the business they are doing. Yeah, if there is still any similarity, I doubt strongly. So
but when you are presenting to your board the business plan, you need to believe in it. That is the kind of justification that doesn't work very much. To tell to your board, this is my business plan, but that this is going to change because nobody knows what's going to happen. So
this is what I mean with there comes completely new business models will come on the horizon, which we not even have in mind up to now. Yeah, and the App Store is a perfect example, I would say, in this case.
Okay, so we'll go back to the second question of Alejandro a bit later, if it's better in another topic. So let's move on now to a different subject called new models of business. We are seeing a new business model called as a service. Mm-hmm. So we hear a lot about ground segment as a service, and for example, Amazon Web Services has been pioneer in this approach. Mm-hmm. Satellite as a service, and for example, Airbus just signed a contract to deliver 15 OneWeb Arrow platforms to a company offering end-to-end service with modular products to allow customers to fly their hardware using satellite as commodities. How do you perceive this new business approach? Does it have a future? Is this what we are going to see in the future in a few years? Anybody from the public? If we have somebody from Amazon, it'd be great to hear what they have to say.
If I may just make one comment, because you just mentioned the contract that we signed. What is first, beyond the topic of a different business model, it's also the illustration of what I was mentioning earlier and what we call next space, saying that today, to deliver these new services, in any case, you find a very good combination between established players like us, where you can build on the industrial capability, you build on the reliability and some track record, with all the innovation, new ideas, let's test fast and so on, working with a new startup. And really for me, what I want to highlight is the illustration that for us, this is not two worlds fighting against each other, but there is good complementarity, and it's definitely a collaboration to which we are very committed.
And I would like also to add that this as a service model goes around the trend to change CapEx by OpEx. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, this is helping developing business that were not feasible because they were requiring an initial CapEx that you could not invest when you didn't know how was the market. Mm-hmm. And now you can start in a more modular way your investment and invest in OpEx so that you can grow your expenses with your revenues. So I think that at the end, this is bringing some new opportunities, as Stephan is saying, reducing entry barriers, mm-hmm. which at the end of the day is allowing small companies to get into the market. I would like just from the technical side also to refer that when we're talking about these as a service models, all this is relying on virtualization, that I think that is a key element also in the future evolution of satellite service. The capability of virtualize everything, virtualize a satellite, a piece of a satellite. Now you can have a satellite and break the satellite into pieces so that you can sell a piece of the satellite to a customer and he can manage that as an isolated satellite. And same thing on the ground segment. I think that this is, as you are suggesting, this is allowing the development of new business models that are creating additional opportunities.
must say I have, of course, the perfect opportunity currently in designing a system from scratch, so to say, that we even can really explore this and the pros and cons of as a service or so CapEx and OpEx, or is it under my own, I would say, ownership and control. I think what helped has in the past years that people really understood what service really means and what they need to offer as a service, that I as a system prime can say, okay, now I can really compare what you offer because you have understood what I need to have. Yeah, so service is more than simply only putting infrastructure on the table. Yeah, and I think this has changed, and I see also here, I must say, a lot of new space companies entering into that market, and I welcome this very much because it is a new idea coming, as said, from EUMETSAT, who is more or less saying, well, an institution like EUMETSAT needs to own everything up to the antenna, so to say. Yeah, okay, and it had a certain reason back in times when the service model was not existent. Yeah, but it's good that we are at a point to really discuss this and have the choice. Yeah.
Any contributions from the audience? Okay, so let's move then to the next chapter about regulatory. We also hear about regulatory issues and complexity in different countries, and we're not sure that there are sufficient and clear regulations to register and provide services. We have recently seen as SpaceX was struggling with such applications in different countries around the world. So how do you perceive these difficulties, and what should we expect from the administration?
Well, I would say maybe someone has not done his homework. Let's put it that way. Yeah, it is complex. Yeah, the one thing is the filing you have at the ITU. The other thing is really the individual landing rights, or say the market access in each single country. And I can tell you, this is a hell amount of work to do, to go to each of the single administrators to ask, what is your constraint? What do you want from us? This is per country, all the globe, a different process. And that's the reason it's a huge effort. Therefore, I think it needs to be well thought through. Yeah, and simply, I would say you need a good connection to the local, I would say, regulators, where you want to get market access and achieve market access. This is simply homework, I would say, you need to do. And in some cases, of course, it may be restricted. So we are not allowed to enter the Chinese market. We know this meanwhile. Yeah? So SpaceX is also struggling. So, but also other countries, I would say, have difficulties, yeah, and high hurdles, so to say, for entering the market access, or huge constraints. We know countries which are even want to have a red button to cease emission. I said, okay, good. Good to know, means additional infrastructure I need to invest. So, and this is for each country different, I must say.
Yeah, I see, and not only the topic of provide service or to register, we need also regulations of launching. And I see it from our startups who want to launch by launchers. I see it of startups who want to build satellites to launch it into space. And they all say it's difficult for us also to find, they find investors, but it's always a discussion. What is the future? Maybe the next government is deciding different, the next government is deciding different. So this is slowing down the speed here in Europe, but I understand also the politicians. Hey, it is not so easy to make a regulation on that. It means also responsibility and consequences. So if you make a regulation, so either the state is paying, but this is taxpayer, or insurance is paying, or the company, then maybe it is too high, then they leave to other countries. Oh my God, I'm out of this discussion, but I'm very curious what happens. Our new government want to make regulations, they want to make a new space strategy. And I think also Europe must find together to have regulations. So not only to provide service, but also to launch, to do new businesses. And yeah, it's all about taking then the responsibility for the decision, what they do. And this is, there I'm very curious what they will do.
We have some comments from Alejandro. Alejandro, would you like to switch on your micro? I cannot right now.
I'm in the bus.
Okay, so his comment is this roundtable is this roundtable is focused on the business aspects, but transforming into providing services has consequences on how we design and develop these systems. I believe that such a paradigm change in the developing teams will be an essential part of the part to make the service-based business approach.
Yeah, we were talking, I mean, I think what he is referring is what I mentioned, and we have been living, and I'm sure all the manufacturers also, we have been living a transformation of being a technology-based company, moving to a customer-centric company. We used to be a technological company where the technology was dominating everything in the company. Now the company is some say the value, the focus of the company is how can I create value to my customer, providing connectivity. That is what we know how to do now, and there is a big change in the way of doing that, and I'm sure that manufacturers are also having the same transformation.
Certainly, where we definitely saw that the discussions are evolving because, I mean, the end user, your customers for the operators, they are not in space. They are definitely on the ground, sometime in the air, but not higher than that. And the real topic and the topic of discussion is what's happening on the ground. How we make it happen from space, I wouldn't say it is our problem, but we are investing a lot in that technology, but the topic of discussion is how does it make an impact to the business and to the connectivity on the ground. And I think that it's moving, also shifting a lot on some responsibilities, also for us to make the right investments, to go in the directions so that we are bringing the solutions, because a key driver for the customers are not so keen to pay for the investment. In our customers, so the satellite operators, they really want to see that we are funding our own developments to bring the solutions to the market, and that this solution is industrialized in a way that it's going to be able to be used efficiently to react to a market which is changing and which will keep changing when it was much more stable in the past. So the focus has definitely changed. That's for sure.
Great. So since we are talking now about regulation topics, let's also have a look at another aspect that is gaining a bit relevance lately: orbital traffic congestion. Uncontrolled traffic, too much debris, no exhaustive database or reliable collision warning systems, no red lights anywhere. Commissaire Breton recently said that he expects to unveil a strategy for space traffic management STM in the coming weeks. USA and Europe are putting each space surveillance and tracking systems, SSTs, in place. We also see that space is becoming a new geopolitical battlefield of the big powers with an incremental development of anti-satellite weapons and tests. Are these risks really concerning to you? What should happen in the coming years, and what should be the role of the European Union to support the safe use of the assets, of our assets in orbit? Or are the operators going to look for their own solutions to secure their satellites with services from new companies providing services such as automated satellite collision avoidance?
Well, I would say I'm really afraid of what is ahead of us. And this is indeed the increasing traffic. If you simply explore only a little bit the database and the ITU, what is ahead of us, I think, how shall we really manage this? I have even brought here a table. It's a one-pager. Yeah, it's about, I would say, maybe 12 constellations which are in our shell.
Okay.
in our shell, other constellations in our shell. And we didn't know that because they are working in other frequency bands. So the coordination goes via Ka band. And then by, I would say, taking our time to really dive into this topic of space traffic management, we found all this in saying, hey, let's look out at other frequencies here. And then we were a little bit shocked and said, okay, what do? We want to, of course, secure our asset. Yeah? And we need to put everything we can dream of as an engineer at the first glance to say, what do we need to do with 300 satellites? And imagine you have thousands of a kind of an autonomous system. The question is from the regulatory point of view now, okay, if you are flying this, where to move?
Yep.
Left, right, above.
Yeah.
So these are these funny questions I always raise. So you cannot simply transfer the traffic rules we are aware of into space, because there's a lot of physics behind, which is different.
Yep.
Maybe like on the water, leaf or loof and something like this. I don't know. So I currently have heard about this. What Bertrand said. I hear also a lot of legal voices saying this may not be possible because at the end it's a I would say, state an own issue to solve, because these states have all signed this treaty in the 60s, whatever. So it's a national thing to sort out. Maybe the good thing would be to, I would say, harmonize it across Europe. But what else? I mean, if we are above in the sky, so to say, there is no European constellation. We are faced with constellations from all over the world, and also not only telecom communications, but also Earth observation constellations, and more coming. So I think the constellations, and I must say our satellites will be equipped with systems to protect ourselves and to do a controlled deorbiting. I see no other chance in terms of taking responsibility, because in anticipation of a regulation which will exactly ask us to do so. Yeah. I'm relatively sure this will come on the table. There's no other.
For me, I think there is no question that there should be a regulation for this. And we are coming from the geos where we have never had that problem. I mean, the geos, I think there are less than 300 satellites in the GEO arc. So we are quite comfortable in terms of number of objects compared to the, I think, 8,000-10,000 that you have in LEO. If you look at all the object launch to the space, I think there were 12,000-15,000 objects to launch to space. And now you see some of the filings of this mega constellation only with one mega constellation equals the number of all the satellites launched in the history. I think that it is clear that there should be a regulation. I mean, this cannot be done without clearly rules that define and protect this as a strategic and commercial asset that need to be protected. I think this is all clear. And I see your point about the difficulties on the legal aspects, but I think we need to find a way. I don't know if at the European level, if at the UN level, but certainly if we don't agree in a regulation that proves to make safe the orbital environment after the deployment of the constellation, I think that this may stop the process of the deployment of constellation, because investors won't invest in a constellation if you have the risk of losing the capability of that constellation because you are collapsing with other objects.
But today, actually, the ITU just regulates frequencies, and it is a free bar where you can register as many satellites as you like.
Right.
Absolutely. But this is a perfect source.
Frankly, in the debate.
Sorry, Stefan. I just wanted. The ITU contains the source of all this. Where are these constellations? But no one is currently using this information to do projections also into the future and to see how it is. There is at least one source of the future. Yeah. Stefan, sorry.
No, what I was just going to mention is that this raises two topics to my mind. I mean, with regards to the administrations, I mean, some administrations will be and are already, I would say, overwhelmed with paperwork. And at some point, you are also wondering if it's not also the tactics of some player to just saturate the whole system.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, we will have to take good care of our space. I mean, we don't have another one. People start blowing satellites. Some other people are sending their car in space. Some others want to sell thousands and thousands. It's going to become a complex environment to deal with, and we need to make sure we take good care of it.
Mhm. Any comments from the?
Oh, yes.
Yes, from you.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. This is something. So the first part I want to comment as person. What I don't understand, if you ask around, everybody is saying, yes, we need the regulation, space debris and collisions and everywhere. When I was at the ISC in Dubai, and I was scanning through the program, and many, really many papers and lectures was about this collision problem, thousands of satellites, everybody, also we. Oh yeah, but nothing is happening. Nothing. If you ask the politicians here in Berlin, for sure, yeah, we have to do something. But do you feel that politicians, in my view, it must be from the politicians and not only parliamentarians, it must be the leaders of each country. Do you feel that they are really scared? No, currently they are scared of other things. But this is really what I cannot understand why this is not a top level, high priority topic. Because everybody can lose the business case. You can lose your business case. You said 12 are in your orbit?
In the shell, in the vicinity of our shell,
yeah.
we have 12 other constellations, which are
Imagine.
crossing us.
And this is about regulation. And what I also always questioning when you come into the discussion how we can do it. So there's a lot of talks about collision avoidance. Very important, of course, it's infrastructure you must build up. So tracking from ground, but I see more and more ideas of tracking in space, in situ, tracking the small particles, 0.1 millimeter, 1 millimeter, 1 centimeter. This you can do only in space.
Mhm.
So there will be also some business cases for sure.
Mhm.
But this shall not be forgotten in the discussion. And the other thing, if you ask somebody high level, it is said, okay, active space debris removal. Satellites going there, capture, and then, yeah. It will run, it will come sometime, but what I'm always missing, and I don't know why, we must talk about avoidance of such things.
No.
And the avoidance is, as you said, okay, you do it maybe by thrusters or other, but to do it automatically. An automatic re-entry, this is avoidance of space debris. People talking more on removing the space debris, but the avoidance, and this is what we do in ecology. Yeah, I cannot drink any more plastic can. Oh, it was 2 years ago. So here we have to do something, and here I come back to the regulations. The regulations of 25 years staying in orbit is, I think, from 67 or something.
No.
Why the hell nobody is questioning this? And in my opinion, the rule must be very quickly down to 3 to 5 years. It can be also European law. Yeah? Of course, competition should not be harmed, but we need to do here something because industry is not doing. It's Wild West. If you have no regulations, you just do. And in the SME concept for the European Union constellation, it is already in. They think even about double reliable re-entry. And so here I see also the regulations that if there is a concept for space traffic management, I know Airbus, you are working on it, on such a concept to propose to European Union. And I think there must be really also one part of that is automatic re-entry. Very important topic, and I really hope this escalates to our chancellor and to France and so on.
The question is, why does the politicians not waking up?
Yeah,
Especially
please tell me.
in Germany. Yeah. No, I only can recommend reading a book. This is the second in a row from Tim Marshall. It's called The Power of Geography. It's about geopolitics, but the last chapter is about space. And it is a little bit threatening if you read this. And he said this is astropolitics currently going on. There are some nations already carefully looking how to, I would say, it's like Antarctica 100 years ago. Yeah? So there are some already exploring, especially US, China, and so on. And we need urgently to regulate this, because at the end, those who are not waking up will say, bloody hell, this is someone missed me, someone forgotten me, so to say. And this is a purely political thing, yeah, and it's highly recommended really to read this, because this is a challenge in the future. We cannot close our eyes. The space belongs to all, and we need to find solution how to use this.
I think, if I may add, there's also an aspect of psychology involved. So the whole issue of the orbital shells becoming crowded, more and more crowded, is, of course, it has something like an abstract danger or situation. For many people, for most people, it's still hard to visualize how critical the situation is becoming. So as soon, of course, as there will be more and more collisions happening and interferences occurring, then, of course, the situation becomes more real. And then all of a sudden, people will start waking up and then measures being implemented. So right now, it's still, I think, a little bit abstract for most. Also decision makers.
Let me make the analogy again to get to traffic. In my hometown, the first traffic light was installed after an accident.
Yeah.
People died. And then a traffic light was installed to avoid this. And I think this is the same typical human behavior. Okay, nothing happens up to now, so let's do. But what if? Yeah, and then people. And this is a little bit we need to anticipate what comes. Yeah, so we need traffic lights, so to say.
Are we really concerned today about Kessler effect? Is this something that you believe that is going to come?
Yes, I think yes. People speak about larger parts, but the small parts, 1 centimeter with such a speed, boom. And I would like really to hear Stéphane's view on that, on deorbiting and automatic deorbiting and rules and regulations. It's my personal opinion, which I express here.
First, I think that, of course, regulations are important, but I also feel that I see that the industry feels its own responsibility on the topic. I've got this discussion many times, because on many times we are being challenged, but guys, don't you think that you are over-engineering stuff? Don't you think that you are too expensive? But yes, when we make a constellation, we put automatic deorbiting. Yes, we put sometimes a spare onboard computer to make sure that you can deorbit and manage. Yes, we put the propulsion. When some other people could just consider, if I've got 1,000, okay, if I lose 10%, what's the problem? The problem is, where are the 10% going when you've lost control of them? So I think that we have a deep sense of responsibility to make sure that we don't create debris. And this is not a given. What I also realize, and discovering through these topics, is that it's more or less the first topic on which our business is coming under very close scrutiny of public perception. Our business so far has been quite away from public perception, but it's really coming into the way. I'm just going to give you a personal story. I was on a weekend with some friends, and at some point you started seeing in the sky, I don't know if you see it at some point, some of these constellation satellites who were going up, you know which one they are, that you could see in the sky. And you could really see that, my friends, the group was split in two. You've got the ones who found it absolutely amazing, and they were the guys who were scared to death, saying that, guys, is it the shit that you're putting up there? So I think that we have a deep sense of responsibility, and especially with the new generation, where we are under scrutiny of public perception on that, and we are very aware of our responsibility in that domain.
Okay. Any comments or question from the public on this subject?
If you allow, just a question. Bernhard Schmidt from Fraunhofer. Hi. I think all the discussion is absolutely valid, but I think we have probably the similar situation like in the climate change situation. There are two ways. Either we can wait that we can bring all the governments in the world behind the idea to protect, or let's say to do something to protect ourselves already now until let's say in the future. And for the satellite constellations, I think to get all the people let's say to a reasonable level where they try to prevent space debris can be a long way. I think what satellite constellations builders should think about is active and passive protection. I mean, there are already some means. It's a question of cost at the end, of course, to have some passive protective devices on such constellations. It is possible, but it costs some money. Or let's say what Ernst said, let's say to have some active steering of, let's say to avoid collisions and these kind of things. I think probably constellations should think more about these protective systems until all the world, all the governments, let's say, become reasonable.
Can't agree more. And I think it's already our responsibility today. I mean, and we are going a lot in the constellation business, but we are going with this sense of responsibility with what we need to put on board. And as you rightly say, it costs money, and we have to be ready to pay the price for it.
Okay, so this was a very interesting subject with lots of comments, and of course it is about the safety of our assets and the future of our assets in orbit. But let's move on to another topic which is also interesting. It's about new satellites. There are new trends, including important innovations in the satellite manufacturing. Airbus OneSat is a modular and software-defined satellite that is having a large success in number of contracts. Airbus also recently delivered the most powerful telecom satellite to date, Inmarsat F1, which is a hybrid L and Ka band satellite to provide services like Internet of Things, and not to forget the OneWeb Airbus initiative. So this question goes directly to Stéphane, of course. Airbus has major achievements in all these areas. From your point of view, which are the keys of success of your satellite business, and how do future satellites look like to respond to the market demand and the expectations of operators to reduce the cost of megabit per second? Which is your concern, Antonio. I thought so.
I do confirm that he's very clear on that. I think on that point, what I find very interesting is that we are at a time where we are seeing that all the roadmaps, all the investments, all the technologies that we had been working on for the last 25, 30 years are converging. I mean, everything that we had been doing about digital processing, about active antennas, I mean, they're really finding their place now on the market. And so this is really where it comes from. You can only collect what you started 25 years ago in these domains. What is very interesting also is that this is absolutely part of this transition or transformation even in the business when you are moving from a video-based to more data-based, which is completely different. I mean, in the telecom business, I would say it's like your mobile phone. There is no loyalty. People move around, the business changes, contracts are short-term and so on. And we definitely felt that we needed to, I wouldn't say completely, but to very strongly adapt the solution that we are bringing to our customers, because our customers face a completely new environment. They don't have any more 15 years contract, all the backlog and so on. They are on sometimes 3 years contracts. After that, they don't know necessarily how they will need to adapt, or their customers, even themselves, are asking them to adapt to a very dynamic market, aero connectivity. I mean, you've got almost to move at the speed of the flights to be able to follow the traffic. So where we are seeing the two things which are converging is, on one hand, the fact that you need to have the technology to do that, and second, because that's the key to what you were mentioning with regards to competitivity, price per megabits, and so on. You need to industrialize, because if you don't standardize to some way, if you don't build up your industrial setup and so on, yes, we will do state-of-the-art, wonderful technology, but it will not deliver a business case for our customers. which, by the way, at the same time also are also expecting that we invest. So it's really the convergence of these elements, all the technologies which has come over time, industrialization, investment, because our customers deeply need that, because they need to make investments elsewhere themselves. I mean, I think that a satellite operator is going to invest much more on the ground. How do they manage their network? How do they optimize these multi-layer systems and so on? And we need to make sure that the satellite is at the right, I would say, price point in terms of solution to make the business case work. That's exactly the challenge of these days. We learned a lot through the OneWeb experience to industrialize, to deliver these hundreds of satellites. We bring this to the GEO business with, you mentioned, the OneSat solution, because we feel that this is the time where our customer need a new solution to get their business case to fly, and for the satellite to stay relevant in the business case of the operators.
Yeah, well, let me say something on the bright side to help you stay on the business and your shareholders stay calm with respect to the situation you described. Yes, but there is a difference. This is one side of the story. The other side of the story is what I anticipated at the beginning of the discussion, is that we have transformed in the last 10 years from being companies working in a niche company, fighting each other for removing the contract from one customer to the other in a closed market that was the broadcast market. We have moved from that niche market that was a closed market to a market that is the telecom market, where the satellite represents 1% of the market. Everything that we are saying here is 1% of another huge, immense market that, thanks to the digitalization, it's even increasing exponentially. So we have the opportunity, if we are able to resolve these challenges that you are explaining, we have the opportunity to gain this new market and stop fighting each other for the cake, but looking for a bigger cake for all of us. And I think that is the great challenge that the satellite industry has as a common challenge to transform ourselves. And I think this is allowing us to look for cooperation, even between operators, because the cooperation in this case between different competitors can give us access to additional market that we were not able to address before. So I think it's a very interesting times that we're living in that sense.
And then I will connect it to another topic, which is very interesting, related to what you say, is trends in consolidation. We have seen lots of M&As in the manufacturing industry, especially in the USA, but not so much in the geo industry, at least not horizontally. Can the operators still survive alone in this area of troubled waters? Viasat announced in November the purchase of Inmarsat for almost 7 billion euros. I was really surprised. I think it was surprised a lot of people, including myself, to expand this broadband network globally in multiple orbits and spectrum bands. And this is probably the only or one of the largest, or probably the largest horizontal consolidation that we have seen in the last years. Eutelsat recently rejected a 3 billion euros takeover, and today we have 55 satellite players in a very fragmented industry. Is this consolidation necessary? And this is linked to what you said, a bit to what you just mentioned before.
So let me say something again here. If I would be entitled to answer this question, I will not be the CTO, I will be a member of the board. What I'm trying to say is that it is up to our shareholders to decide and what is the best financial structure to leverage on the assets and the investment that they are making. What I can certainly answer, and I have partially introduced that, is that we need to cooperate with different actors in the business. And we need to cooperate not only with the other operators, we need to cooperate with the terrestrial operators. It is very important for us, for what I explained before, because the customers don't care if this goes by satellite, by ground, or whatever. We need to be able to integrate the satellite with the terrestrial infrastructure to make a seamless integration so that at the end of the day, the customer shouldn't need if you're using the satellite or the terrestrial infrastructure. Another thing, we should be able to cooperate between operators, as I said before. I cannot understand that today we are not able to use one terminal with one satellite, and if you want to move to another operator, then the terminal doesn't work. I think that in the modern world, in the modern telecommunication world, where we are seeing initiatives from the ground telecom operators like the Open RAN, where you see Telefonica, Vodafone, and other telcos working together and designing together the infrastructure that they're going to commonly use. I wish we would be able to cooperate at the operators level in a similar way. And I have a view in that sense about what could be the future of the satellite communication, where it could work like a sort of internet infrastructure in space, where the operators will be some kind of tier one operators that will be exchanging capacity between ourselves and selling that capacity to tier 2 and 3 level operators that will commercialize that capacity without entering in the discussion on whose that capacity. So that at the end of the day, we'll be selling capacity, and we will arrange between ourselves on who's the capacity we are using in the same manner that you are doing with the internet. Do you really know who's the network that you're using for your internet access? You don't know, and you don't care. If we want to be a telco infrastructure, we should start thinking like a telecommunication infrastructure.
That's true. I also explain sometimes the constellation. I said, forget that we have satellites. These are flying routers. We are talking about a network in the sky. Absolutely. And to combine this with a terrestrial network, we are at the edge. You see what kind of opportunities we have in terms of, and the customer, it doesn't care if it's fiber, satellite, maybe a combo, and 5G, 6G, we have not even talked. So even mobile communication, maybe a combo for further digitalization here on the globe. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Any comments from the public? So let's move then to another chapter. That this is value chain and technology. So in terms of value chain, relating to the industrial side of the business, without making any distinctions between legacy or new space or however we want to call it, we are interested to know what is the vision of the value chain in this changing environment. We'd like to understand how the SMEs are benefiting from the growing business. What are the expectations of the SMEs from the administrations? How is the price increase of materials and delays of materials affecting your production? What role can the SMEs play also in this new constellation, this new European constellation? So this goes directly to Ernst. What are the key concerns of the SMEs, and what would you ask in a letter to Santa Claus or the three magic kings, or whichever you prefer?
Unfortunately, next Santa Claus, I have to wait a little bit. But thank you that you put this discussion into this round here to the auditorium. And I thought about what do I say at the beginning? And for me, it is important, I think, to realize for you all and for the politicians, SME is not equal to SME 20 years ago. So if you say SME, currently many say SME or startups. But what is SME currently? Yeah, of course, in our view, it is due to the European law, below 250 employees and so on. But this is not what I want to mention. There are established SME and startup SME. This is the difference. Then you have legacy SME and new space SME. Then you have system SME, which can be a startup or which can be established ones, or supplier SME. So the SME landscape is much more different than before. And but in the value chain, of course, I say, oh, we are very important. Clear. Yeah. This is, but also I think it arrived Airbus that everybody knows now SME are important. I compared a lot with a jungle, with a rainforest. You have the big trees, you have the small plants. The plants come and come and come, and they get bigger. And OHB 20 years ago, Clemens, when we have been in Kaiser Trade, it was an SME. Very clear. Now it's a global player, system house. So, but what is the difference between jungle and space business? Maybe it is not. But I think, and not only in space business, but also in other businesses like Amazon or it is financial driven. It is a lot financial driven. And especially now, money is playing the role. If you have in the rainforest, you have rain and light. But if it comes out of balance, then you have a problem. And the same I see in the European ecosystem. If it comes out of balance, we have a problem. Everybody has a problem. And here I see also politics in the duty to act. This might not be liked by the large system players if politicians are saying something, but it is, of course, in our view, very important. We see, you share everybody, we see a gigantic sum of private funding. Mm-hmm. What does this mean? If you really dig into, it's maybe even philosophic, I don't know, but it comes to a very high risk of dependency. Not necessarily dependency on the big companies, but dependency again on the financial market. This we all have also to see that the financial market is not finally driving also space business, in my opinion. You asked me, Eduardo, on where the positive things, the negative things of this new wave of space for SME, for the value chain in the lower sector. So I see, due to these private funds, there are a lot of opportunities for startups as well as for established ones. But the advantage is for the startups, they cannot do all by themselves. So they need to cooperate with the SME. So we SME know quite well who can do what. We gather together like a swarm. And this I miss a little bit still from the LSI to really approach us and to search for the discussion. So we have more visibility from the public, from the private sector, that space is a strategic capacity. It is in our coalition contract. And which means then again, we have more public funds. So everybody could be happy, but what is negative? Negative is, I start with something, we have more competition. Okay, one can say, yeah, competition is super, but if I see my company, I face new competition. There are some startups from France, they do the same as myself. So it's but it's challenging. The best will win. This is market. This is okay. But where we really did not think about so far, I think a lot, I do not really want to blame anybody, is there is a risk of bankruptcy. So if you sell something to a financed constellation and they go bankrupt, you have a problem. And in the past 3 years, I lost 100,000 euro. It's not so much, yeah, but 100,000 for an SME is much, because 2 companies went bankrupt. So currently we are all in the wave in the rosa Himmel. How do you say? In the rosy pink sky. There is money. Yeah. Let's do. But I'm pretty sure there will be the case that somebody will break. And SME cannot effort a lot to miss the money. So this I never heard in panel discussions so far. this risk because we don't want to realize it, like in the gold rush. Then
may I make a comment? Because
yeah, please. Yes.
we are definitely realizing it every day, because what the risk that you are mentioning, and it's a real risk that people often underestimate. I mean, in the space business, we are playing with big things, and big things means big risk, big opportunities, but big opportunities. And when we are talking about the big companies working together with the SMEs, that's also a big role that we are playing in that chain. We are supporting an awful lot of our supply chain and partners to make sure that when there is a crisis, we know how to get through it. And I can tell you that we are very much aware of the risk associated with the business in that area, and we have always been alongside of our partners to make sure that we go through it. But for SMEs, it is a tough environment, and that's where also the big players are playing their role in the chain.
Yeah, look, I've in our German Association of German SME, we have startups, more financially driven, and established ones. And I see both of the problems. If you are already established, if you don't run with a new approach, also new space approach, you have the risk that others make a product half of the price. And if you are in the new space business, once you sell a constellation or a part for a constellation, you need investment for serious production. But at the end, you see me smile because I always like to do new things, big things, changes. For my personal life, it's really, I'm very happy that I am in this race. You asked about the price increase. I think you all here, you see the material price increase. Even the half year simple aluminum blocks are 30% more expensive. The EEE components are much more expensive. We have the inflation, which means the employees are coming, hey, gasoline, my car, my flat, I need more money. Anyway, we have a problem of talents, I guess. We all, in space business, it's not so easy to find somebody. But we all have firm fixed price contracts, at least on the supplier side. So it is, it's really.
I also have firm fixed price contracts.
But you're on the top of the.
If I'm in the top of the chain and I have firm fixed price, what are you expecting to have? Sorry for that.
Yeah, it's a game, but at the end we are discussing that you also hear the problems of the small one. But if the small one will break away, you have also a problem. The same as Stéphane has a problem. If a small one is breaking away, he has a big problem.
I didn't want to enter in this discussion because I think you need to have your voice, and it is important that we recognize the value of the SME. But I think it's key the role of SME in big programs, and we have certainly sometimes seen that a small SME in a big program of more than 100 million, it can put at risk a program if the SME is not properly managing their financials. It can get into trouble. A program of several hundred millions for a supply that costs 10,000. So I think that it is very important. And I'm not sure what is the way to this is probably more for the primes, to see how we can stabilize the SMEs, because I think there is a strong concern in big programs on the stability, the financial stability of SMEs.
Yeah, I think it's, guys, just a second, it's not such a problem, because if the SME, even with such a high contract, talk to the primes, just talk. And if the primes are open, it's not a problem. We have a joint program of 110 million, SME dominated in the Copernicus program. It runs because we talk to the prime. In this case, it's Thales. Sorry, Stéphane, I interrupted you.
No, and just to build exactly on the same topic, I can tell you that going through the crisis of the pandemic, for instance, we do have a specific team which is set up just for that. It's a watchtower trying to monitor the health, trying to know where do we have to support our supply chain, where our suppliers, because I would say on a satellite, one bolt is missing, you don't launch. So I think that it's clear. I wouldn't be as quick as saying that it's not a problem, because when you might see it from your angle, you could say it's a small problem for the big prime, but it's many small problems, and these many small problems can become big. But I think that we are all in here together. We only exist as prime if we have a robust supply chain, and it's also topics that we are discussing with our institutions, with ESA also, to make sure that they are on our side, to make sure that we develop not only the technology in the companies, but also their industrial robustness, because we need robust partners to take high risks on the big prime projects. So we are all together. The business works because the food chain works.
You wanted to have something on Santa Claus.
Yes. Yes.
So please, I have a wish list. And you asked this specifically for the European constellation. So first of all, this is somehow also personal driven. It must be a green constellation. I mentioned it already. And the second one is I would like to see in the regulations, so not only the orbiting, but also that at least 20% are allocated to SME. Stéphane will get a heart attack if I say this number. 20% is a lot. Typically SME in an ESA program have something like between 3 and 10% only. So 10 but the European Commission is more or less on our side with 20%. They said even 25%. And then the third wish is, should the governments support this, also via ESA contracts, ESA developments, pre-developments, please don't do it out of the nominal space budget. It's very easy. They say, okay, we cut the other artists' telecom program. We cut the PPP programs of ESA. We cut the Earth observation because your industry want to have the constellation. No problem. No, it must be additional funding. And this, I think we all have to communicate to the politicians. We need additional money because there is an additional challenge. And the fourth one is to talk. Just like here, between all the stakeholders up to the operators who give us the firm fixed price contracts. Just to talk, to exchange. And we have lost a little bit to talk since the past 2 years.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so we'll see what Santa Claus answers. But you will have to wait until the end of the year, I'm afraid.
Yeah, but we have the ministerial conference also in the vicinity. So
okay, we have 20 minutes left. Let's change to a very thrilling topic. It's technology. Here we have several parts that I think are very interesting also. So, and I will start by Hispasat. Hispasat is involved in the most advanced initiatives, and Antonio, you have been key in the adoption of new business models and technologies. In the Air and Space Academy, you have stated that, I quote, expect to contribute to the integration of the satellite with 5G, 6G networks, to the development of new space infrastructure from high altitude platforms to CubeSats, software-defined satellites and constellations. You also promote the development of a space quantum communications with the first application in quantum key distribution and the development of a common lunar communication infrastructure. And what you have said at that time...
I think that, if I may interrupt you, that proves that I was not nominating for being a humble person.
But still, everything that you mentioned is part of the technology trends that we are seeing today. They are very important and they are very challenging at the same time. So how do you, this goes to everyone, how do you expect that these technologies will evolve in the coming years, and what is the space going to look like in 2030?
Well, I don't know if I should be the first or
Of course.
No, just I try to be quick in giving a response. The reality is that the industry, I think, has all these challenges ahead, and I will try to refer very quickly to why do we see all that in the scope. I think we've been talking about the integration of terrestrial and space infrastructure, and this is the 5G and the 6G, and also the standardization of ground terminal, and this is the 5G and the 6G. High altitude platforms. There was a time, there was some we started on hubs in 2015, and we more or less standed by in 2019. It's true that there was a period where the hubs were more interesting. Now, I think there will be in the next month, probably, there will be a revamp of the story of the hubs. Those high altitude platforms are very interesting for two main things. One, they can go directly to handheld. One of the beauties of this element is that this will be your terminal for the hubs. It will allow to provide communication to your handheld. And also, because they can be moving and they can be up and down, they will be very good for giving response to very short period of time demand. So if you have some temporary demand, imagine even for a football match, you could deploy one of these devices on top of a stadium to provide capability to the people in the stadium. So this is something that we will see in the future. We've discussed about software-defined satellite and constellation extensively. And I want to talk a little bit about the two last things that we were talking about, quantum communications and lunar infrastructure. So quantum communications, it was yet quite recently, a couple of years, that we, on Spatial, we realized of something, that the quantum properties that are transmitted via the fiber, they cannot be transmitted in a long range. And more than 100 kilometers, they start having difficulties to transmit quantum properties. So quantum communications by fiber, they have a certain limitation. However, in free space, there is no limit. So suddenly we realized that the satellite will play a role in transmitting quantum properties of the matter to make this quantum communication. And the first application that we see is quantum key distribution. At the end of the day, this quantum key distribution means that you can transmit one key to two parties to exchange secret messages between these two parties. And I'm not going to say that it's unbreakable, these keys, but it's a key that you will know when you receive it if somebody has broken it before. So you and me want to exchange a message. We receive by satellite from Munich to Madrid, and we receive by satellite the keys, and you and me will know, and we will use a classic channel that, like the phone. Oh, did you receive key 34? Yeah. Is it break? Is it broken? No, no broken. Okay, let's use key 34, and we'll have a secret key that we will be sure that you and me will be the only ones knowing that key to exchange messages. This will be key in the post-quantum cryptography, because another thing, and I don't want to be too long, is that quantum computers will be able to break all the cryptographic keys that we've been building in the past, probably will be broken with the quantum computer. So quantum key distribution will be in the future an important element. We are currently having a study with the European Space Agency for a phase A study to develop the first geo quantum key distribution system in the lunar communications. There is, in the next 10 years, more than 100 lunar missions, moon missions scheduled. It doesn't make sense that for those 100 missions, we're going to make the specific infrastructure for each of them. So it makes all sense to develop a common lunar infrastructure. And for us, it even makes sense that this lunar infrastructure is not paid by is not funded by the public money of the biggest space agencies, but it can be built, and we are ready to work on that. It can be built with private money if we get in a PPP scheme to provide services to the big agency for supporting those missions. We are working now with the European agency in the program, Moonlight program, for developing all this infrastructure. And we are strongly convinced that this is going to change the way we are going to we're going to get back to the moon and get to Mars as a next step.
Yeah. Let me introduce the next subject because it is extremely related to what you said. Is that, and this is more related to mega constellations as well, is that there are certain technologies that will be almost mandatory, such as laser inter-satellite links, regenerative payloads, very high data rates, active phase arrays, but many of these are in a very early stage of utilization. And to build a constellation, you need a massive serial production of equipment, which you have to trust because it has very little heritage. And we have seen recently also SpaceX struggling with its optical ISL. They had several months of delay because of the development of those optical intersatellite links. So do you think that the industry is up to date with your expectations? Is this a field also where SMEs may find a path to contribute?
They are already there. I see them already. I see SMEs working on new technologies, be it on Ka-band technology, be it on intersatellite links. So I think there are technologies under development already. Interestingly, our filing or the architecture behind our filing has in 2014 and thanks to the founders already in mind to use intersatellite links in 2014. So they more or less prognosticated already the use of Ka-band, regenerative payload, of optical intersatellite link technology. I think on optical intersatellite link, we are maybe more mature because there are products on the market. On Ka-band regenerative payload, I think we are not yet there. In Ku-band, it's maybe different, but we have to go through all the bands. They're all coming now. Yeah. In Ka-band, especially for the ones like us with a high priority filing, and certain milestones to achieve, we have to really look into it. What is really available on the market and what we can now use and embark on our satellite. But it's on the regenerative payload side, especially the phase array antenna technology, plus it means the RF part, plus the digital part. And if the digital part is even, in my view, even more complex, because these are new chips which are maybe not even there and have to be developed. And we know in the current situation, if you say chips, and you need that even cars cannot be manufactured, now come I with my mega constellation who want to have some chips, this is a drama currently in the overall supply chain. I mean, Stéphane may confirm the pandemic has really turned everything upside down, and all schedules are currently slipping because the supply chain has simply problems, and which means also problems to industrialize, I would say, these elements in a constellation with only 300 satellites.
One thing on the realization, of course we can, and fortunately I have an evidence for it. Copernicus, for example, so before this HPCM satellite, so high priority candidate missions, the 6 satellites, really the share of SME, I said it already, was something between around 3%. Now in the HPCM, the share is 12%. 12%, and just by the regulation of the European Commission and ESA, minimum 5%. And you could imagine somebody would say, "Oh my God, they will not be capable." But if I see all the companies, at least in Germany, where I have a very good overview, they increased a lot their stuff very quickly. You can say, okay, this will end up in the chaos, but meanwhile we are in the second year already. We are working, and all the other companies are also working. So we can do. Also, small company near Bodensee, they are involved in a constellation. They build up serious production. So we can contribute. We have also the ideas, and it's just a matter of collaboration, trust, talking, as I mentioned already. Yeah.
If I may just a comment on the laser communication, because it's in the continuity of the comment I was making earlier, saying that we are really coming at a time where all the technologies which have been developed over the last 20, 30 years are really coming to maturity and meeting the market. Laser communication has been around for quite some time. What we were doing on what we are still doing on EDRS to do the LEO to GEO laser communication, which works very well. Also putting on a new GEO satellite mission a demonstrator to manage uplink for operators by laser communication is also well underway. And in Europe, we certainly have very clear leaders for that, and a very strong leadership, especially, of course, in our subsidiary TESAT for that. So it is definitely a very strong business, which requires, again, industrialization to make sure that for constellation business and so on, we meet the right price point. But at the end of the day, what is going to be absolutely key to also keep developing that business, it's the user terminal. We can do much more with that, but it needs user terminal at the right price point so that the market picks up.
Still, I was surprised to see a few days ago a company that is starting to commercialize inter-satellite link in S-band.
No, this is indeed under analysis to use also RF between satellites. It's a valid question. Physics works. I fully agree, Stéphane, on the user terminal side. We observe, of course, very carefully what's going on. I must say, I'm also happy to see that all these user terminal companies we are, I would say, in touch with, I would say, have a self-motivation to be ready for the market. So they are investing currently a lot. I see products, higher and higher throughput, Ka band, antennas, which can both 5G and Ka band. So although prototypes, yes, okay, industrialization is a key, and there are interesting elements in terms of industrialization. Either you do it, I would say, semiconductor based on the phase array, or liquid crystal based. They are really fancy ideas which comes, I would say, to ease the industrialization of these user terminals. So I'm currently, I know this is a critical topic, but my current perception is the terminals will be there for the business we intend to do because we see them all working. But okay, it takes maybe for us still 3 years of time, 3-4 years. So we have still some times, but they will be there.
Okay, so we have
absolutely, and we need these terminals for the business. Completely looking forward to it, absolutely.
So we have 5 minutes left. So I would like to move to a set of speedy questions. Speedy answers, very quick about certain topics that are trending. So moving up to higher frequency, KVW, yes, no, how long?
It depends.
Oh, no. I will disagree. I will say yes, based on the history. We will fill up KA and then we'll go. We are already starting to use Q and V bands for gateways.
If you see the race at the ITU,
yes,
the discussion there, it comes anyway.
So we are already seeing W, lots of talks about W. So radio frequencies, we just mentioned this a few seconds ago. Radio frequency or optical inter-satellite links? Both. Optical will.
For me, it's not clear.
No.
I want to see the trade-offs in each specific design case.
I think also here there will be niches, and Constellation will use this one, and the others not. Same as QV band.
I am more for the optic inter-satellite links. Yes. Yeah.
We will use optics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they will replace completely the radio frequency in a few years. 100 kilowatt satellite.
Oh,
we'll see.
I don't need 100 kilowatt.
Stéphane, are you ready to build a 100 kilowatt satellite?
I'm not sure actually that building it is the real challenge. We will be ready for that, but at some point you need to make sure that it makes sense.
Okay. Solid state SSPA, solid state power amplifiers will replace TWTAs, traveling wave tube amplifiers. They are increasing power. They are already present in all frequencies. Do you think this is something that is going to happen in the next years?
Yes.
Well, you see how long does it take?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, little by little.
Little by little.
100% additive manufactured satellite.
I don't think we need 100% additive manufacturing satellite. There will be parts where additive manufacturing will be better, but I don't think necessarily we need to get to 100% additive.
On certain elements, yes.
I don't see not more than 20% of a satellite. For equipments, up to 80%.
I saw in the news some days ago that there's a company that intends to build a 100% 3D satellite.
Including the chip.
Chippers was our bigger one. So we know you need 5 nanometers, but in this case, okay, we haven't heard much about hubs lately. Are we going to hear more in the coming months? Are they coming back?
I guess so.
Okay.
Oh, they are definitely there. They are definitely there. Yes, it is there. It is flying. It is testing, but it will take its own time. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, established, because we have seen lots of initiatives. Airbus has its own hubs as well, but we haven't seen anything which has established really in the world of observation of communications. One box does it all. So this means consolidation of functions, lots of functions in single electronic boxes.
I think Stéphane should say, but I guess we go in that direction.
Definitely, yes. Yes.
Okay. On-orbit servicing
Will come.
Yes.
will come.
Yes.
We did it already long ago. So
Yeah,
it's
we
fine.
did it a long time ago. Yes.
It's something, well, I don't know if I'm opening a Pandora box, but something I think that we haven't been looking at probably is about the capability of on-orbit servicing for assuring the orbit of constellations.
Mm.
I think when you have to design a constellation, introducing the reliability constraints for making sure that you're going to deorbit, it's imposing some, we need to recognize, some cost impact in the design of the propulsion. And I think that one simple solution would be to contract somebody that will take one of these on-orbit servicing, and then it will deorbit satellites. It's one of the discussions that we're having.
And just a few seconds question, Moon or Mars as the new telecom frontier?
Sure.
Okay, so we arrived to the end of the conference. So thanks a lot to everybody. Thanks a lot to the speakers. Thanks a lot to the public for having participated. Stay tuned because we have interesting coming conferences in the future. We'll talk about other topics that are trending today, like militarization of space, Earth observation, defense uses, new launchers market, new booming downstream business, and even hotels on the moon where you don't need a COVID pass. So stay tuned for this and more of topics hosted by HNZ, and thanks to everybody for having participated.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks. Yeah.
17, sharp.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much from my side as well. It was a pleasure to listen to that. I think I need to review certain times all the wonderful speeches and so on. So enjoy the evening, and whoever is in our office, of course, you're invited to join us at the bar